Hi, I'm Dr. Mike and this is NFGeeks. Well, this video is a Thursday theme video. Every Thursday on the Facebook forum for NFGeeks, I make a video based on a theme and encourage others to make a response video for that. And this week's video is going to be about the grip, something that's a concept in personality typology, specifically the Myers-Briggs. And I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about because, you know, I feel like I've been in the grip. Well, I'll get to that in a minute, but you know, it seems to be something that's really relevant. You know, I put it that way. And sort of, you could argue that most of the videos I make, even the theme videos, are kind of like about the grip, but this is when I wanted to address it kind of specifically. And again, not necessarily theoretically, a little bit, but you know, I really wanted to talk about it in terms of my personal experiences. And the grip is basically when you know, the inferior functions, and I would say functions as opposed to just the inferior one, the one inferior one. The inferior functions sort of override and take over the system due to stress. That'd be the simplest way I would talk about it. So due to stress, you know, things are sort of knocked out of order, if you will, in terms of the functions, whatever. Now, things that are inferior that you're not really good at or don't really have good control over are kind of running the show, so to speak, you know. So and these are sort of type specific. You know, what happens to people based on what their functions are determines what type of grip they have and how that manifests in them. So I wanted to talk about that, but I want to add something that people don't usually talk about, or haven't heard it that way, and that is that I think that there are collective grips, meaning that there are grips that are temperaments, that are for the temperaments in its collective sense. So in other words, there's behaviors of grip that are for the NF. So there's NF grip that all the 4 NFs share, and there's NT grip that the 4 NTs share. You know, the SJs, SP. There's sort of a collective, you know, set of grip traits, if you will, that we're all sort of connected to and participating in. So I wanted to talk about that first because I think that's sort of a concept that people aren't talking about. So I want to talk about what those are and how I have them in me. That's the first thing. So there's 2 that I think are very important. And the first one that happens when NFs are in the grip, and we all do this, is apathy. Okay, and I know you don't usually hear that, and you don't usually make that connection with NFs, and that's because I think people assume apathy is connected to the thinking function. And that's not necessarily right, because what the thinking function actually does is, you know, in any of the T's, it creates a dispassionate self, not an apathetic self. Okay, INTJs and NT, you know, any of the NTs, INTJs, ENTJ, INTP, they care. They absolutely care. Okay, about things and about people and situations. You know, they're just dispassionate. Okay, so I don't think apathy means that you're connected to the thinking. I see apathy as simply an absence of empathy. Okay, you know, when you're empathy, you care. You're feeling something. You're feeling something for the other person. You're feeling something from the other person. I mean, empathy is this huge thing. Apathy is that shut off. It's the absence of empathy. Okay, where you're just, you know, and you can hear this with NF. Like, it's sort of a fiery apathy, you know. It's when NF say things like, you know, somebody's saying, well, I need this and that. Well, I don't care. I don't feel good right now, and I realize you have these problems, and you know, start going off like that. That's a sense of apathy. You know what I mean? We don't usually see it that way, but it's a real total absence of caring. Like, whatever, I'm in the middle of my self-absorbed NF emotional thing, and I don't care what's going on with you. Okay, that comes in. That's part of every NF's grip. Okay. You know, and that's why, you know, people say, well, NFs aren't always sensitive. And no, you're right. Of course they're not always sensitive. Sometimes they're in the grip, and they're very apathetic to your problems because they're just, you know, engulfed in their own shit. You know, that happens. You know, I sometimes am apathetic. So, for example, when am I apathetic? Sometimes I'm apathetic on the forum. I'm apathetic. You know, I got 10 million things going on and 7, you know, emails, and everyone's mad about something, you know, and you know, and I'm trying to run this whole thing, and then somebody's trying to get my attention and for some kind of issue that they care about, and I'm like, please, You know, I brush them off, actually, and we'll get to that, you know, in a minute too. But that's the apathy that kicks in, and all the NFs do that. The other one is, I think, is very important, is shame. I think that NFs can be very shame-based, and not just, you know, usually I talk about this about INFP, and I do think that INFPs suffer from shame very much. But, you know, when I really think about it, all four of us do. And that's because you know, being interrelated with people and being connected to people and showing love and receiving love is paramount to NFs, and anything that screws that up is going to really affect us badly. So, for example, most of the time when we're in the grip, when relationships are failing, we blame ourselves. NFs will blame themselves all the time. Okay, it's our fault that this happened, and so there's this sort of view that the lover, the friend, the family, whatever it is looking at us badly because otherwise this relationship would have worked. Okay, so there's a sense of shame. I don't want anybody to know what a jackass I am, because then I won't have any love at all. You know, and again, this also comes from NF over idealism, which is part of the NF grip. Okay, of idealizing this perfect human being in this relationship that is, you know, the pinnacle of my existence and why I'm on earth, thinks I'm a doo-doo head, so I better hide that part of myself, you know, otherwise they will see me as I am and hate me, you know, and not give me my love. So there's that shame thing that relates to idealism and idealism of perfect relationships. And blaming themselves. I do that all the time. I'm pretty, like, even though I say this and I know it's part of the grip, I'm also at the same time pretty convinced that, for example, like, I totally ruined the relationship with the doctor. That was totally my fault, you know, completely. And as was the one before that, okay, which I'll bring up in a minute. But that these things were by my hand, that if I had just, like, you know, knew how to steer this boat just a little better, I wouldn't have hit the rocks. You know, so even though I'm saying I realize that's an idealism, you know, it's funny, but kind of dissociations go on in the mind. So even though I say that, I do honestly feel that way. I definitely honestly feel that if I had my shit together better, you know what I mean, maybe the doctor and I'd still be together, even though, you know. So, I mean, things like that. That goes on. So I'm still sort of, you know, trapped in that. That's being trapped in the NF stuff. And one other thing that NFs do is that NFs take small things and make them dramatic to hide the real things. Okay, ENFPs are particularly adept at this, I must admit, but all the NFs do this. So you know, so when you're wondering, like, why is the NF being so hyperbolic about, you know, not getting the, you know, not being able to get the last cupcake or something? Okay, well, because there's some other thing that's really, 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 that's, you know, scary and dark, and they don't want anybody to know that, so they're going to you know, be emotional, you know, in this huge way. Now you probably say, well, doesn't everybody do that? Yes, they do. But one thing that NFs put a twist on it is that NFs then start talking about it as if they're working on issues, and that somehow this is a real growth, when really it's still trying to hide the thing. So I've learned to accept that I don't need to have the last cupcake, and it's okay to share the cupcakes. You know, NFs will talk like that, as if some growth has actually occurred, as if some development has, you know, has happened, when really nothing. It was bullshit before, and then the answer, the survival, I'm a better person, and I've really transcended because I know I don't need the cupcake. No, that's bullshit. It's bullshit at all points. Okay? So remember that. When NFs are talking about transcendence and the cupcake, then know that that's the grip, and that's horse shit, and there's something else going on that has nothing to do with that. Okay? Some NFs are mad, like, no, the cupcake's important. No, it isn't. You know. So that's that. That's those are the NF ones that I think the NFs share. All right, I want to talk about the now. I guess I'll talk about the ENFP ones, and talk about how the ENFP ones specifically affect me. And the one that I cannot escape no matter what in the ENFP grip is hypochondria. Oh my God, I cannot escape this. It's every day. I'm not even kidding. Like, I'm not even exaggerating this. Every day for like 5 minutes, I'm pretty convinced I'm dying. Okay, I am convinced today's the day. Like, for 5 minutes, I am genuinely having an anxiety attack about dying. And then it passes, like, literally just 5 minutes later, I'm like, okay, it's fine, and I just go on. It happened today. I was having some heartburn before I went to, you know, Noah and I went to supper at a diner, this diner that's in town that we really like, and so we were going there, and as I was pulling in or going there, I was having like a heartburn issue, something, and I thought, oh my God, this is it. I hope I don't die in the diner. And just, I was like having this hypochondriac moment, and you know, I got a glass of water with a lemon in it. I drank it, fine, gone. That was it. But for those 5 minutes, And you'd think, like, since it happens every day, I would remember the next time, but it doesn't matter. That's the thing about hypochondria and being in the grip, is that this is like talking about screwing up the relationship. Even though you're conscious of it, that does not in any way change the feeling of it or the manifestation of it. So I know I'm a hypochondriac, but yet every day for like a few minutes in a moment, just once a day, but every day for like a few minutes, I'm convinced that I might be dying, and then it goes away. Okay, it's almost comical, except for 5 minutes it's not comical at all. And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be like chest pain, weird things. Although one of the things that sucks so much about this is that I had the shingles a couple of years ago, which is awful. And the shingles, so it's basically chickenpox, the revenge of chickenpox. That's what the shingles are. And it damages nerves, and so you get neuralgia, which is pain for a really long time, years and years and years. And it's not every day, but you always have pain. And my neuralgia went from the middle of my chest around my left side. So I'll get pain in the nerves on the left side of my chest. Now, it's always in the exact same spot, so that's why I know it's the neuralgia. But as soon as I feel it, I go into this scary place, and then I realize, no, that's the neuralgia. It's right there. There it is, neuralgia. And of course it is. And it doesn't have to be heart stuff. Like, if I get an allergic reaction to something, so for example, I've said this, I think I said this in the INTJ navigation, social navigation video. I'm not sure. But I get allergic to the Doritos, the powder that's on the Doritos, the red powder, whatever it is. I get allergic. Noah does too. And I get hives. Not a lot, I just get hives. They're noticeable, but nothing terrible. And my face gets blotchy. It gets like a purple cranberry blotchiness right in my cheeks, like there, and it kind of changes from cheek to cheek as the blood flows, whatever. But I get a little bit of hives. You can see them, nothing bubbling up, nothing crazy, but you definitely can see them. Now this happened my whole life. I mean, anytime I've eaten Doritos, and usually I don't eat Doritos for this reason, but if somebody has some and that's all there is to eat, I'll eat them. But when I start seeing the hives, even though it's really light and I've done this before and nothing bad has ever happened, I start having this freak out that I need the EpiPen. Like, oh my God, is my throat going to close up? Am I really going to? And then for a few minutes, I am convinced I'm going to die. And then I remember, it comes out of it, and I remember that, okay, no, this has happened before. You've never died. It's not going to die. It's nothing, And I move on. But the hypochondria is something that I cannot, I cannot get out of it. It is so, I'm so stuck in it. Now the other one that's really, that really exemplifies me when I'm in the grip is the whole thing about withdrawal. Okay, this is a very important ENFP one, and I find people don't understand it as well. I think because of the way ENFPs are in our manner, the way very affable and very with people and all that, I think they don't know how to interpret the withdrawal, and so they misinterpret it as a whole bunch of things, either that nothing's wrong, or that it's manipulative, or that I just happen to, I'm fine, and maybe I shut my phone off, or my phone fell out of my jacket, whatever it is, but it's never ever seen for what it is, okay, which is being in the grip, okay, it's never seen that way. So people don't expect that. My point being is, I don't think people expect the ENFP to withdraw, and somehow that gets mistranslated or misunderstood. Okay, and when you're withdrawing, I can tell you this: when I'm withdrawing, I don't feel like explaining it. To be honest, I'm not in the mood. I don't want to explain it at all. The sensation of it, though, I was trying to think about this. It's not so much a running away. Withdrawal, that's the word you would use for any of these things, but it doesn't feel like running away. Like trying to get away from something. It feels like running out of gas. Okay, and just like, I don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? You just don't want to, like when you're running and you're running on the road and you're running and you're just tired. You don't want to do any more, so you just go and you just sit on the side of the road. It's like that. That's how it feels. It doesn't feel like trying to run away from something. It doesn't have that feeling of it. It has more of a, stop. More of a, just being stopped on the road kind of feeling for it. And it is a kind of a shutdown for sure. I find. Obviously I withdraw when I get emotionally overwhelmed, and mostly I find that I withdraw when I simply cannot handle other people's responses. Again, I know that everyone's going to say that, but when I say I don't mean like they're yelling or that they're mad at me. That doesn't do it. I guess what happens is it's more about what they're saying, not how they're saying it. I can deal with how they're saying it. I can deal with that. But I find for me, it's more about what they're saying and not being able to process what they're saying in a way that's very good. And being very upset by it. Especially if and this goes back to the shame, if it's some sort of, I'm taking it as some sort of assessment on me in the relationship with them and not doing something I'm supposed to be doing. And it gets really bad when I've thought I was doing something really important, you know what I mean? Because then if I feel like being underappreciated, I'll go into the withdrawal, like, how dare you, just, that the grip will just happen, at that point. And that becomes hard. And then you end up avoiding people. This is something that's happening my whole life, and nobody gets it. And boy, do people hate it. And I know they hate it, but I have a tough time, like, trying to not do this. But I'll definitely avoid people. I'll avoid contact. Okay, anybody who knows me knows I do this. That if I'm not, they may not know that I'm in the grip or feeling bad, but I'll blow people off. I'll blow people off. I'll blow texts off. I'll blow off phone calls, messages, anything. I'll blow when I'm in the grip and I can't handle it. I'm too stressed out. Stressed out. I'll blow people off. Because it's so stressful in my life. Going on. I can't handle it. And I've totally withdrawn. And I don't give an explanation for it, because that makes it even worse or whatever. So sometimes I completely avoid people trying to contact me, and they become furious because they think, like, I don't know, something's going on there. Something is going on there, but it's the grip and withdrawal, that they take it personally. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. I mean, I'm not saying, they shouldn't take it personally. I'm just saying that they do, because it might not even be about them. I might be having withdrawal and, just not being able to handle things and shutting down about someone or something else totally different that has nothing to do with that person. Nothing. They're not even involved, but the withdrawal is so, so much that I can't do it, and it's not like I don't know. I'll hold the phone and see that they're texting, and I just won't be picking it up. I just won't. It's tough. But I do that. I won't lie about it. Another thing that goes on with ENFP grip is, really, there's a lot of sadness and despair that goes on with ENFP grip, and also just sort of a swing of emotions. And the thing is that a lot of the grip symptoms for ENFP also seem like bipolar symptoms. And I don't know what that means, and I don't even know if I want to know what that means. Does that mean all ENFPs have bipolar disorder, that we're all condemned to that? I don't know. Or is there no such thing as bipolar disorder? It's just ENFP in the grip, and if we were just out of the grip, we wouldn't be taking pills or anything. Does it mean that? I don't know. I don't know. But it kind of scares me a little bit because if you read what it's like to have bipolar disorder and these things, they're the same list. I mean, they're almost the same list. And feelings of sadness and despair and depression, I've had those my whole life. I've pretty much cycled through major depressions, starting when I was about 12, and then every 6 years, like every 6 or 7 years, going through a depression, like a major depression where everything came to a halt. I mean, having depression in between that, but having this much larger year cycle going on, with myself, unbearable. The last one, it was in 2009, 2010. That was the worst ever. It keeps getting worse, which is scary, but each cycle gets worse and worse. And the last one was crippling. It was crippling, and the aftershocks are still happening from that. So that's a really, really strong grip in that sense, and it is very despairing. Those things are very despairing when they happen, because you also get connected with anxiety. You have anxiety over the despair and despair over the anxiety. You get caught in this cycle between everything. It gets pretty miserable. And I think the last thing that happens is for ENFP, for me, is spinning the wheels. You know what I mean? Putting a lot of energy into something and not getting anything done, and not knowing where to start, and not knowing what to do. NFGeeks is like that. There's so much to do, and so much, sometimes I sit at the computer like, okay, do I answer that message first? Or do I go to here? Or do I do that? Or do I make this video? Do I upload that thing? What should I be doing? I'm all over the place just on the screen, let alone in my real life. You know, it's a lot, and all of this creates that. All right, so two things I want to end with that are important. One is that I find that we are not very sensitive to each other when we are in the grip. We all like to point it out. We all like to say, "Oh, you're in the grip." We all like to do that, but I don't sense any real sensitivity. And even the NFs, well, the NFs say, "Well, not us." Well, yeah, you too. Okay, I don't find any real sensitivity from NF to NF about any of this at all. I find that the grip and bipolar disorder are thrown in my face anytime I do something that people don't like or disagree with, or something they want it to be their way or whatever. They're quick to do that. My experiences with both of those is, did you take your pills? And all the other one is, you're in the grip, you know, because only someone in an ENFP with a grip would be a jackass like you. You know, it's never ever welcoming or trying to help or trying to reach out or anything like that. I've never felt that at all. But and you can tell too the wording, you know. It's not sensitive. It's not, you know, we never ever really want to help people in the grip. We just want to point it out, maybe to make ourselves feel better, that, well, it's because they're a jackass in the grip. That's why we can just say what we want, or, you know, it's your fault. Somehow it's like blaming the victim a little bit, or blaming somebody for their disorder. It's similar to that. But I've never seen any real sensitivity about the grip between any two types. Okay, never. It's all very accusatory. So you might want to think about that. And lastly, and this talks about something I was just mentioning, is that I do think, you know, just like with the cycles of depression I talked about, I think you can chronically be in the grip. And maybe that these two things are the same thing. But you can sort of chronically be in the grip longer than what people think. I think people think about the grip like, oh, I was in the grip today. Like you were in the grip for an hour or two, you know, and that was it. And maybe that happens. But I want to take the other side of it, which is I think you can be in the grip for years. Forget like 2 hours. I think you can do it for months, weeks, months, years. I feel like I've been in the grip for about 5 years. I'm not even making up that number. I mean, really, 5 years since the relationship before the doctor ended. That's when my worst depression started, and I haven't been happy since then. I haven't been happy in 5 years. Really, I've had moments of happiness, but I can't say I've been happy. For the most part, I haven't been happy at all. I can say that I've been in the grip because all the things I talked about today, and all the ENFP grip stuff, and all the NF, just the general NF grip stuff, I've pretty much, that's been cycling through me on and off, on and off, on and off for the past 5 years, totally. That's been, you know, just switching those around back and forth. So I do think that you can be in the grip for a very, very long time. You can get stuck in the grip. And I say that because I feel I've been stuck in the grip. You know, again, I look at this list. I've been doing these for like 4 or 5 years, easily, all of them. You know, and I wasn't always doing them. That's my point. Like, if, like, you know, 10 years ago, I was doing a lot less things on this list. You know, so that there is a difference. So think about that. All right. So can't wait to hear. Make your videos about the grip, and let's hear how many of you have been gripped, and you know, and hopefully these videos will be gripping.